Are you ready to enlarge your territory? Empire Transport is ready, willing, and able to cover all your transportation needs, both long haul and local. We service South Carolina, throughout the southeastern United States, and across the country. Sound good? In addition to freight hauling, Empire Transport also offers a 24/7 taxi service in South Carolina and the greater Charlotte area, and a mobile mechanic service where we come to you. Empire Transport, your go-to for freight hauls, taxi service, and mobile mechanic work. Learn more at empiretransport.co. Come and enlarge your territory with us. Welcome to Kingdom Now, the podcast featuring faith with an edge, as we celebrate the kingdom of God within you. I'm your host, Dr. Leanne Marino, apostle, author, and theologian, and founder of Spitfire Apostolic Ministries and all the works that go along with it. I'm excited to share this program with you as we explore the ins and outs of counterculture Christianity present as you live out the kingdom of God in your everyday life. Want to learn more? Visit my website at kingdompowernow.org. And now, our program, which features a variety of formats here just for you. Interviews, teaching and preaching proclaimed everywhere from my North Carolina studio to Sanctuary and beyond, and powerful insights here for now as we turn the world upside down everywhere we go. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, happy whatever time of day it is wherever you are, and to our listeners, and name a country.
Belgium.
To our listeners in Belgium, we say hello or bonjour. We hope that whatever time of day it is when you were listening, that you were having a good one. And I'm so glad that Nick picked a language that I was not going to butcher. And I
You're
welcome you
welcome.
to this. Thank you. I welcome you. You could have said something really out there, that I really don't know how to say, like Swahili or something like that. It's like, okay, I know Hakuna Matata. That's it.
Okay, fine. I'll do Swahili next time.
Okay, so I better look it up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and I welcome you to this edition of the Kingdom Now podcast, and I am your host, Apostle Dr. Leanne Marino, here as the Spitfire, serving as the voice of counterculture Christianity, where we feature the theme of faith with an edge. And if you'd like to learn more about the world of counterculture Christianity, feel free to visit my website at kingdompowernow.org. One thing I don't think we often do enough these days is give testimony, is share our stories of how we kind of got to where we are from where we started out. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing on this episode today. This is our final episode of the season. I know everybody, do not cry. Do not be too upset. There are lots of episodes for you to go back and listen to in the meantime while we create new ones and prepare for our next season, which we will be back for soon. But today, my guest is Minister Nick Lewis, who is going to be giving their story today as part of our conversation. And I'm going to turn this over in a minute for them to kind of introduce themselves a little bit before we get into their whole story. So, Nick, go for it. Tell everybody who you are.
Yo, everybody. I am Minister Nick Lewis, pronouns they, them. I am Minister of Music for Sanctuary International, as well as the worship leader. If it sounds like I'm going through puberty at any point, I am dealing with sinus issues, so that's fun.
Puberty?
Yeah, like my voice cracks.
You don't sound like you're going through puberty for fine, go on.
Oh god, where was I? Oh, I blog. My damn it.
We're tired. Okay.
This
go
is
on.
going great so far.
Yeah, this is just fantastic.
Right. My blog website name is nickfits.com. That's nikfits.com. You can also find me on social media, on TikTok for however much longer we have that, at nickfits411. That's Nick Fits with the numbers 411. And on Twitter, I refuse to call it X, Nick Fits 2. Yeah. Nick Fits with the number 2 after it. I'm not terribly on Insta anymore, so I won't bother with that. But my link tree is in Twitter, so if you want to find me anywhere else, all my other stuff is on there.
Okay, very good. Well, as we talk about giving testimony and you kind of coming on here and telling your story, one of the reasons why I had asked you to do it is because kind of inadvertently, you have been responsible for a lot of people finding out and discovering different things about themselves and their
Yeah.
identity, including me. And
Hmm.
in that tribute, I think that it's always really good to kind of look at where the people who kind of help to lead us to ourselves come from. Because we don't give enough credibility to the fact, hey, I didn't get this great just by falling out of the sky. I mean, if that's the case, that's really cool. And, tell everybody that. But usually it goes through a lot of processes of discovery through you. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to sit back and probably interject with questions and stuff like that as you go along and let you have the chance to kind of tell your story on our program here.
All this time I probably should have figured out where to start, but I guess I'll start. I was technically born in DC, raised in Maryland, grew up fairly conservative. Was it Missionary Baptist?
Mhm.
Yeah, basically Black Baptist, but evangelical to the left, which is its own very unique flavor. I went to two private Christian schools. The first one was affiliated with the church I went to initially growing up.
What kind of school was it? Like you say you went to Christian school growing up. What kind of an
Um,
experience did you have therein? Like, is it just school with Bible? Is it something entirely different?
it's kind of school with Bible. Like, I know I remember my second one, we actually had like Bible class where at one point I knew all of Hebrews 11 because of that class. So shout out to SMCA. But the first private Christian school I went to was not a cult, but had some pretty high control elements.
Mhm.
I know I've told you about this, Mom, but one of the things we would do in the mornings were Bible doctrinal drills.
Uh-huh.
And we had like a series of questions and answers that we had to memorize and basically go through them at the beginning of, we'll say, like first period, the first class, something like that. And the questions were like, uh, what is God? God is a spirit and has no body as we do. And like, what did Jesus do on the cross? Like, God sent his only son that he loved very much to die for our sins. Like, a lot of stuff that kids can't comprehend at that age,
Right.
especially when they have us reading out of the King James version only. That's totally
Mm,
appropriate for 5-year-olds to try and
right.
digest and understand.
Right.
But now you know why I know so many things in KJV. But no, I would say on the whole, well, looking back, not everything was perfect, but everything, or things were still good out of it. I made some good friendships. There's one friend from middle school I keep loosely in touch with, so that's nice. Yeah, had a lot of different experiences. I say I got saved in third grade, so I was maybe about 9 or so. And with that, we would have these things called assemblies, which could be, either a speaker comes in and gives a sermon, or it could be like general school announcements, something like that. And one they gave, I don't remember the exact structure, but they basically kind of had like an altar call towards the end, like if anybody wanted to accept Jesus and profess him as Lord and Savior,
Mhm.
then you could raise your hand and come up to the front, and people would pray for you and stuff like that. So I did that then. It wasn't like I wasn't pressured to do anything. I kind of just felt a leading to do it.
Mhm. You were
Yeah, I didn't
moved.
feel, yeah, I was moved. Thank you. Didn't really feel terribly different after it, but I know it has definitely changed my life in a lot of ways. And I have definitely changed my beliefs in a lot of different
Mhm.
ways. The core of my beliefs, I would say, are still the same.
Mhm.
But in terms of like LGBTQ community, different relationships, things like that, those have almost radically changed. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm queer for one thing, so obviously things have changed, but you know.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Hmm.
So you were in Christian school.
Hmm.
You got saved.
Hmm.
What happened after all that?
I did go to public high school, and that was a culture shock. It's funny looking back now at how quote unquote holy I was, because I would get appalled by the amount of times I heard people say like hell and damn in the hallways and on the buses. And now my favorite word is the only one that we can't say on air, so that's really funny. And
Was there any reason why they sent you to public school?
tuition got too much for my mom. So,
Understandable. Understandable.
yeah, private Christian schools ain't cheap. But so ninth grade was really me being pretty evangelical, especially ninth grade. The rest of the time, I still kind of was, but I would have like the cringe is setting in. These wallet sized cards with Bible verses on them. Sometimes they would have like cute pictures. I hear you laughing. Or, or something on them. And I would like hand them out to teachers and like my friends. And for whatever reason, one of my technically queer platonic partner still has the one I gave her in like ninth, 10th grade, something like that, in her wallet to this day. So
So
part of
they
me is
weren't
looking.
that cringy.
I mean, no, because she she took it. This is before I came out as agender or non-binary, what have you. When I gave her the card, she told me this later. She thought, "Oh, she wants me to get saved. That's so nice." She had no idea I was terrified of not telling her about Jesus, but that's a whole separate issue.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, they kind of terrified us into evangelism at the second Christian school I went to. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm totally not scarred and have latent anxiety attacks when I think about that. It's fine. Look, I told you about that video we watched about this friend writing to his other friend from hell because he didn't tell him about Jesus.
Yeah,
That
that was yeah.
God, that scarred me.
Mm-hmm.
What else was there? Oh, I forgot about good old Chick Tracks, which, if you don't know what Chick Tracks are, they are basically Christian comics with questionable theology. I'll leave it at that.
Very.
Yeah, and the designs can be kind of horrific also. And I say that because this was at my second private Christian school, and I would like to emphasize that I went there from 5th to 8th grade. So basically preteen years, not the best. But the more I got exposed to different people and different beliefs and things like that, the more my beliefs started to change. It's not that I abandoned Christianity, obviously. My world just expanded beyond what I was told. Because it's one thing to be taught something all your life, but it's a different thing to experience what may or not be true about what you've been told as
Mm-hmm.
you go through life.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, I grew up hearing, homosexuality is a sin, it's a choice, blah, blah, blah. And me being so naive in the closet because I was also asexual, or was, like I not still am. I didn't think that I quote unquote struggle with that sin because it's like, I don't lust after women. What do you mean? And looking back, it's like, yeah, I kind of had some crushes on my female friends back in the day. Yeah, just thoughts of like cuddling with some of them and waking up and making breakfast. This was a lot later in life. I was not having those thoughts in middle school. But
I was gonna say
no, I wasn't that fast.
that was precocious if you were. It's like, wow, okay.
No, but because I didn't have, the sexual thoughts, I was like, "Oh, I don't struggle with homosexuality. I'm fine." I mean, I still am fine, but I am also very gay, but also asexual.
Mm-hmm.
And by gay, I mean like bi specifically. I have a non-binary male partner. Oh, yeah, that's new since we've been on the podcast, but anyway.
Mhm. Obviously, you met your non-binary partner much later than high school.
Yes. Yeah, like, last year, but
Anyway, continue.
yeah, it wasn't until, I'll say, 12th grade where I started mellowing out, so to speak.
Okay.
I wasn't so uptight about certain things. I had I'm gonna phrase this in a way that's gonna make you laugh. I had dabbled in cursing a little bit. I knew
Just
it.
trying it on for size.
Just seeing if the shoe fits. It turns out it fits like a glove, but anyway. And then I got to college, went to Wingate University, shout out Woo, and freshman year is still kind of I'll say kind of conservative. I was leaning more towards the moderate end at that point,
Mhm.
but still kind of, anti-gay, things of that nature. And it wasn't really until sophomore year where my now ex-best friends, one of them, was or sorry, is a lesbian and also professed to be Christian. So when I would see her just struggling with her faith and sexuality, I didn't want to come out right and say to her that, this is wrong because she had been told that all her life. I adapted more the mindset, God's big enough to correct you if this really is wrong. As long as you're genuinely seeking them, then, you should be okay.
Mhm.
And then when she finally accepted it, I saw how much more effective she was. Effective is a word choice, but basically how much more at peace she was with herself and her faith.
Mhm.
And it's really because she stopped spending the energy on hating herself and
Mhm.
trying to figure out why God wouldn't quote unquote take the gay away. And that's when I saw that being a gay Christian really isn't an oxymoron. It is very much a thing that can happen. And with that came, acceptance of my gay friends and bi friends and trans friends and all the other friends in the rainbow. And
Like a
then
floodgate.
it pretty much.
It's like it just opened the whole door.
Hmm. And then my ex, who I started dating in high school, we got together 12th grade. Yeah, 12th grade, wound up leaving or splitting up the last time because that's a whole story. The summer before my senior year of college. And around my sophomore year of college, she came out as trans, so male to female. And I think that was technically the first theological question I asked you. Like, does the Bible say anything about transgenderism or anything?
I think that you're right. That sounds right.
Yeah. And you kind of showed me that no, it really doesn't. And that's
Mhm.
because I was still kind of conservative at the time, gave me peace enough to continue with the relationship.
Mhm.
Even though I shouldn't have, not for that reason, but it just became toxic on several levels. But I got out. That's all that matters. But in trying to learn more about her at the time, I came across other terms, one being demisexuality.
Mhm.
And I came across that because I found a video and I still couldn't tell you which one it was to this day. I just remember that it was this trans individual talking about, their identity, and they used like three terms in under a minute. And for little baby me trying to accept LGBT stuff, that was a lot. But demisexual was the one that stood out to me. And I was like, what the hell is that? So I look it up and I see what it means. And I'm like, wait a minute, everyone's not like this? What do you mean? And that sent me down the asexual rabbit hole, especially when I was more active on Tumblr back in the day. And around, I'll say 2015 is where I started identifying as asexual. I wasn't like Sparta kicking the closet door open. I was kind of like easing it open. It was kind of creaking, needed some WD-40, but I was I was inching my way out of there.
Mhm.
And it was around this time I also came across non-binary. I can't remember exactly how, but I remember also seeing that on Tumblr and being like, "Huh, this kind of fits me." Actually, no. I think my ex actually had a hand in this. I forgot about this conversation
Mhm.
where, and I forget how we got started on this, but basically talking about genders and things like that. I remember her saying to me, like, I can't tell what you are. You're kind of both. And that helped with the whole androgyny thing. And it was also another one of my queer platonic partners actually introduced me to the term androgynous. So went with that for a week, didn't fully feel like I exemplified both. It was more of like a third option, and now it's kind of, nebulous. So that's where I mean it is. Like you ask me what my gender is, I'm gonna tell you it's the question marks that appear over an anime character's head when they confuse. Like that is my gender. But yeah, so once I or after I left college, I had to find a church and I came across one on my own that was LGBT affirming, and it was MCC Charlotte. They don't, I forget what they go by now, but my first service there, I really enjoyed. The music could have been better. We eventually did work on that, but for the most part, I really enjoyed it and, saw a lot of older queer individuals there and made friends with some of them. And it was great, even to the point where I became worship leader for, well, like a year and some change, something like that. And it was there when I started more so going with they, them pronouns. So I came out there, and then I wound up coming out at work, which was kind of scary, but didn't get fired, thankfully. And I don't know about the company as a whole, but I know definitely on my team, I was the first person to come out with different pronouns. And
History
unintentionally,
making.
yeah, and unintentionally started a trans revolution because after I did, there were a handful of other people that came out later at various times, and I'm like, I
Hmm.
just wanted people to stop calling me she, her. I wasn't expecting all this. But yeah, quite a few days on our team, there was one person who, like, completely trans to the other binary gender. And that's when it really struck me as like, oh my God, I kind of made this easier for people to do. Holy shit.
Mhm.
And yeah, I even told my therapist, and he was proud of me for doing that. Gender. Oh, the bi thing. So the last part of my, I'll say, queer identity would be, I guess the technical definition would be oriented aro ace, which basically means I am somewhere on the aromantic and asexual spectrums, but I also experience attraction to people of any gender, basically. So for that, I will say I'm bi as well. That didn't come about until, well, the crush I couldn't ignore happened in 2018 because I technically did have feelings for AFAB individuals prior to meeting this one.
Mm.
But I remember I was going home with a couple other work friends and I saw my crush kind of walking home on their own. And I remember feeling butterflies in my stomach when I saw them. And that's when I was like, oh shit, this is real. What do I do about that? So that was what sent me to therapy.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
interesting.
the first session my therapist was kind of like, "So what brings you here?" It's like, "So I think I like girls and I don't know what to do." And, worked out some other stuff, family baggage, codependency, whole 9 yards, but
You know, the
what sent me
norm.
yeah, the simple stuff. But yeah, me discovering I am not exclusively attracted to guys was what sent me to therapy.
Hmm.
And got to work that out slowly, came out to other people, including this other individual, told them how I felt. It was one sided. It's fine. We're still friends, actually, we're platonic partners now.
Hmm.
So, all things considered, it worked out.
Of all these different realizations that you had, so you
Hmm.
basically went through orientation, you went through gender, then you kind of went through orientation again on a different level.
Yeah.
Which was the hardest?
Oh, that's a great question.
I know that's why I asked.
I'm gonna say it's a toss up between the bi thing and the arrow thing.
Hmm.
Because I'm not gonna say that being asexual is easy. It's definitely not, especially given in such a sexually charged society that we live in. It is easy to be overlooked or dismissed, or people don't even know that asexuality is a valid sexuality to begin with.
Right.
But at least from my background is easier to say I'm not sexually interested in anyone as opposed to I like girls.
Hmm.
So that's where I'm coming from that standpoint. It's mostly family baggage, essentially, because I was not raised to believe that, AFAB individuals can or should be attracted to other AFAB individuals. Oh, and for those who don't know, AFAB basically just means assigned female at birth.
Hmm.
Sorry for not explaining that earlier. And then the aromantic thing, which came after everything else, that was a time for me because one, even like now, I'm still trying to figure out what flavor of arrow I am.
Hmm.
I'm not 100% aromantic to the point where I don't want a lifelong partner. I mean, obviously, I'm partner now. That is something I want. But explaining to someone that I like them, but the relationship might not look what a traditional romantic relationship might look like was scary. It
Hmm.
was an intimidating prospect because I didn't really know how to explain it and have people be okay with that. Thankfully, my partner's okay with it. It's something that's still funny to me to think about is that my definition of aromanticism is their definition of romantic. So it's like, oh, we're on the same page, just different labels.
Hmm.
Cool. This is great.
Just different explanation.
Yeah, which our definitions are basically the more intimate emotional moments that come from it,
Hmm.
not necessarily spurred on by anything or has like a fancy dinner or anything attached to it, just kind of, good heart to heart, deep emotional moments.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, with gender, there's also the whole thing about how some people still don't think they them is valid for an individual to use as pronouns, but the pronouns in general are more becoming more accepted. So
Hmm.
I wouldn't say that's too difficult. I mean, it is difficult when I walk into like a Jimmy John's or something and get, hey, ma'am, like three different times in 5 minutes. But as far as coming out to people with that, it's not as radical, I feel like, as coming out with basically any of the other things, including asexual. So,
Hmm. Interesting.
hmm,
Interesting. And journeys are very individual, which is pretty much
yeah.
why you're here talking about this.
Hmm.
So you're going to this church, you're having all these realizations,
Hmm.
you're discovering all this stuff about yourself. So what happens next?
The discoveries were intimidating but liberating, I would say.
Hmm.
The hard part was coming out to certain people. I It's funny that I'm out pretty much all online, but not to all of my family. I would say the younger generation, so those relatively close to my age, are more accepting of the queer community and things like that. But the older generation, not so much. I have seen firsthand certain looks that certain family members have made when queer relationships come up or queer identities, things like that. So I'm not fully comfortable coming out to all of them, let alone a few of them. And coming out to my dad, which to this day I've only like halfway come out. I didn't get to the gender thing, but
Mhm.
that basically did not go well. What I told him at the time, because this was before the Arrow discovery, was that I'm romantically interested in males and females, but sexually interested in no one.
Mhm.
He basically heard I like females.
Right.
And
That was
that
it.
became, yeah, and that became a whole thing. But I came out to my mom recently, not with labels or anything, because she's 70. It's hard to adjust to different things even at a younger age. But basically what I told her was I prefer child and person as opposed to like daughter and lady or whatever. And I can be attracted to guys and girls. I didn't even get into like the whole multiple gender thing. And I'm sexually interested in no one, not by choice, but that's just how I am. And that got received rather well. She did come from the standpoint of, who am I to judge? It's your life. You, whatever lifestyle choices you make, that's on you. But she did also say that, give her time to adjust because she will make an effort to use the name I go by now, which is Nick.
Mhm.
So that I'm still surprised at how well that was received, but I'm not complaining in the slightest. So I'm trying to think if there were any other. I don't know if there were any other people who it was difficult to come out to. I think family's probably the biggest one. My siblings know and they're okay with it. My brother's still adjusting, and I know he doesn't agree with every point, but he loves me and respects me, so he's going to do what makes me feel comfortable.
Mhm.
So, like, he doesn't fully understand why I want to be called Sib, short for sibling instead of sis, but he has made a conscious effort to refer to me as Sib since I told
Mhm.
him.
Mhm.
So,
In the experience, because like you say, you didn't come out to your mom until recently, and you did try with your dad a few years ago, and it really didn't go over the way that you hoped.
mhm,
What did you do with that? Like, as somebody who is dealing with identity, and sometimes there are struggles with that,
mhm.
how did you deal with those years and that kind of interim between coming out to your dad and it not going well and coming out with to your mom?
Rejection is definitely hard to deal with, whether it's, about your identity or just anything else. But I had a strong support system to help me get through it, to validate me, to basically love me to the other side.
Mhm.
And I had people around me who understood me and who affirmed me, even coworkers, as
Mhm.
much of a dumpster fire job we work for. A lot of us are queer and or mentally ill. I'm still not sure
Mhm.
how that happened, but we all get each other so we know what it's like. So we
Mhm.
can support each other in that way. And I'm even close enough with some of my work friends to update them on family situations and they'll offer as much support, advice, and or listening ear as they can.
Mhm.
And the distance, I will say, also helped because it gave me time to more or less sit with my own thoughts and feelings and wrestle with them to the point where I came out on the other side more secure in my identity. And I'm not gonna lie, it's still intimidating to me to think about reconnecting with some of my biological family members because of how I am.
Mhm.
And because unless I come out, I'm going to be dead named, basically referring to the name that I no longer use,
Mhm.
but is my legal name. And misgendered, basically being addressed as female instead of, gender neutral references
Mhm.
for who knows how long, probably a few hours, because it would more than likely be around a holiday where I would be around a lot of them.
Mhm.
So I'm not too eager to like basically go down with a battering ram and be like, hey, this is who I am and you're going to respect me or else. But I feel like even with that, whatever possible rejection I could face, it would hurt, but I'd still be me.
Hmm. I don't think you know how poignant that is.
Elaborate.
Because, like you just said, no matter what rejection you'd face, you'd still be you.
Mm,
And a lot of people see rejection through the lens of that somehow it takes something away from them. It makes them
ah,
less than or less of a person or less of a being to not kind of have that backup. But like you say, you're still you.
yeah. And it's definitely easy to think that you are the problem if someone doesn't accept you or affirm you, but we always don't know what another person's dealing with basically.
Mhm.
Kind of like how you're asking me these different questions and I'm telling you stuff that even you didn't know. And how long have we
Mhm.
known each other now?
A long time.
A long time, like over a decade.
Like I would say like 12 years, something like that.
Yes, something
Yeah,
like that.
some about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're finding out new information about me.
Right.
So unless we really talk to and with people, notice I didn't say talk at because that's a different meaning.
Mhm.
But unless we dialogue with them, we're not going to know where they stand or how they feel. And I don't like this thought that is just dropped. You may be the person that changes their mind,
Mhm.
which is a terrifying thought. Circling back to me on my job, like people can get fired even if there's a rumor of you about being queer, especially in North Carolina, which is a right to work state. There was no guarantee that I would still have a job if, I came out as trans.
Mhm.
But they were good enough to suggest to me, like, hey, why don't you use pronouns in your email signature? And they've done different email blasts, like around Pride Month, with different resources for that. They've had a couple LGBT panels, one of which I was on one year, talking about asexuality and I think bisexual. No, I think I did touch on the bi thing, but also gender. And the next day, I had someone from a different department message me on Teams basically saying, I really enjoyed, hearing what you said and seeing you being representational on there. And she told me that she was Demi. And I'm like, wait, what? Hello.
Mhm.
And that's the other thing. I keep meeting asexuals in the wild and I don't know how this happens.
In the wild, like as opposed to where they're supposed to be rounded up.
Online.
Oh, online. I see.
Right. Because,
Mhm.
like, statistically, unless they've changed, I haven't looked them up in a bit, we're supposed to be 1% of the population globally. So it's like,
Correct.
how do I meet all of you in Charlotte?
Okay, well, but all right. Okay, I get that. I get that. But like what's the world population? 7 billion people?
I thought it was 8 now.
Okay, fine. Great, even better. So 8 billion people. So what's 1% of that? Like 8 million?
Something like that.
That doesn't sound right. Anyway, I'm too tired to math tonight. But what I
I
am going to
I
say
don't
is
math.
it's still a lot of people. And like we've often theorized, there's probably more than 1%. People just don't know it.
Oh, yeah, there's actually So I won't say who this is because I have not asked permission to speak on their behalf about their sexuality or whatever, but
Mhm.
a work friend came out to me recently saying that they discovered that they were demi. And it was through a joke. I forget how it started, but they mentioned in the chat that they were, too demi for this to be a thing. And I'm like, wait a minute. Were you saying that as a joke or are you actually demi? Because I need to know what gift to respond to this with. And I basically responded with that gif of Thor smashing the mug on the ground, going, another! Because, yeah, and it's
Good
funny all the.
choice.
Right. Thank you. It's funny all the talks we had about asexuality and aromanticism and things like that, and they still had no idea because we hadn't touched specifically on demisexuality, and she didn't even know that that was an option. So,
Mhm. So here you are changing the whole world, coming out to your family intermittently, like over time, and
mhm.
working on your job and trying to make change for different issues at church. And so through this whole interim, like, where are you next?
Threatening to be aggressively queer whenever I can be. You know I'm right. Making gay jokes every chance I can. No, like it's funny because my partner knows that I'm bi, and we actually have the same crush in a female K-pop group that we both stan.
Mhm.
And they got her most recent album before I did and was sending me pictures. And one of my responses was, "Why is she so hot?" And that wasn't an issue, just
Mhm.
because they know how I am. So I'm not, to the people who really know me, I'm not afraid to be me, so to speak.
Mhm.
As long as I know that you're more of a safe individual, or if I can kind of feel you out, then, I'm just gonna be me. And sometimes I
Mhm.
feel like I'm aggressively me just to see if anyone, this is gonna sound bad. I don't mean for it as bad as it's gonna sound, but basically to see if anyone gets sick of me immediately and decides that they don't want to be around me. Because if
Okay.
they see me at like full Nick and don't like full Nick, then they're not going to be around for partial Nick. And partial Nick would be like the Nick who can't swear openly on the job. Look, one of my friends has said it was a religious experience hearing me swear off the clock for the first time.
You know what this is making me think of is this meme I once saw that actually kind of called me out. But
Hmm.
that's a whole other story. And it said that, my version of flirting is being as much of a bitch as you can handle and seeing if you can deal with it. And that's what I'm thinking of as you're talking.
Okay, no, that's it.
It's like I am going to be me at 100 proof, not
Hmm.
watered down, straight no chaser, and I'm gonna see if
Hmm.
you can handle it. If you can handle it, we'll be all right.
Right. It's like if you can handle my emotional breakdown, you good.
So, how did you and your partner meet?
Tumblr of all sites. I can't tell you what post it was originally, but I saw that they responded to something on a post, so it was kind of in a thread if you don't know how Tumblr works. But I remember liking what they said. I checked out their profile and I saw ace and he they pronouns in the bio. And I was like, wait, hello, friend? New friend? And scrolled through their blog a little bit and saw that they were also a dork like me, so that was a bonus. But I messaged them saying basically, hey, thanks for being so out about being ace. I appreciate, the representation.
Mhm.
And this is where I jokingly say that it was my fault we met, but it's their fault that we kept talking.
That sounds about
Because,
right.
yeah, because they not only followed me back after that, they responded to my ask, which is basically what that message was called, saying that I was welcome, thanks for the message, and if you want to keep talking, feel free to DM me. And so I did, and going on a year and a half ish later, now we're here. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So how'd you get ordained? You tell everybody you're a minister of music and you're a worship leader and all that.
I'm trying to figure out where to start with that one. So, going back to ex best friend again, this was when I was checking out a church. I didn't feel comfortable there spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
There was a few different things going on, but I was kind of in church limbo, so to speak. So she invited me to a Bible study that she said you were doing. And we did that like what we were meeting in McDonald's for a while.
Yeah, we started out at McDonald's, and then we had
Yeah,
COVID, so we went into houses.
right. And I'm thinking it's just a Bible study because she didn't mention it was a church. So unintentionally got roped into sanctuary that way. And
God just Sparta
then
kicked you.
I mean, yeah, and I didn't even know I was getting Sparta kicked. I was just like, "Oh, hey, friend, Bible study. Let's do this thing." What do you mean it's a church? What do you mean I'm a leader? But she later got revelation that I am a member of the fivefold, which if you don't know what that's referring to, Ephesians 4:11, which basically names apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers. And she got revelation that I was prophet. And prophets are basically mouthpieces for God. I would say kind of like an ambassador, like you would send someone from your country to talk to someone else of another country. The person who gets sent is basically the prophet. They speak on behalf of God. And wrestled with that for a bit because that was scary and intimidating because that was a lot of responsibility. Still is a lot of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
But I eventually came to accept that. I heard your
Mm-hmm.
and then I heard you kept talking about seminary. And I was like, "Can I check out the next class?" And you were like, "Yeah, sure." I didn't know I was getting roped into the full, you know, school, but here I am, what, 2 years later?
About a year and a half, 2 years, yeah.
God, it's been that long already. Wow, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so now I'm in seminary after swearing up and down that I would never go back to school whenever people would ask me after I graduated from Wingate. So working on my master's,
Okay,
which
but
I
this is cool school.
I mean it is cool school, but it's still school.
Fair.
Yeah. But yeah, never thought I'd be working on a master's and what, there's a doctorate program with this too, right?
There is.
Yeah, so PhD is an option in the future.
So you're going to be Dr. Nick Lewis.
That doesn't have a bad ring to it.
No, it doesn't.
I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and then the minister thing, it was that at the retreat from hell that came
Yes.
about? Okay.
Yep.
We call it unaffectionately the retreat from hell because it was not great. Spiritually, there was something going on. It was, yeah.
It was
And
life.
it was life. You more or less got attacked there. Yeah.
It
So
happens.
it does. But
We're
we moved
learning a
on.
lot about spiritual warfare these days.
Boy, are we ever. But you and ex best friend basically were like, "So we're considering you for ordination." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then you all kind of, well, I think I talked to you specifically. So I was
Hmm.
just like, "So what do I need to do? And how did you come to this decision?" Because I remember expressing I was uncomfortable because you all kind of presented it as, "Hey, you're gonna get ordained at some point." And I'm like,
Mhm.
"I didn't know this was on the table and I didn't get a say in it, so can we have this conversation, please?"
Mhm.
And we did, got it straightened out, and obviously it worked out. Been ordained for 2 no, 2 years?
Almost. Like a year and a half.
Yeah, something like
No.
that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was it's funny because in middle school, I had wanted to be you know how, like, kids think about things they wanna be when they grow up?
Yeah.
Mine was minister and author at the time.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not.
You are kidding. Oh my god.
I'm not. And so, now
I
I am a
wanted to be a
minister.
fairy princess. What is this?
You still got time.
Okay. Hashtag life goals. Okay, go on.
Right. And now I'm a minister who writes way too much fan fiction and publishes maybe half of those ideas,
And
if that.
blogs.
Oh, yeah, I do blog. I did say that earlier, didn't I?
And you're working on a book.
Oh, I do have ideas for that. Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, see? So you're exactly being what you wanted to be.
Yeah, which I guess technically might have been a word. I just didn't realize it was a word. And when I say
Mhm.
word, I mean kind of divine revelation. Because it's
Mhm.
like, after a while, I kind of gave up on the minister thing. I just didn't see it as an option anymore.
Mhm.
Because I majored in English, minored in technical writing. It's like, oh, I'm going to do something with English, but not teaching because God bless the teachers. I do not have enough patience for that. And now here I am.
Well, there's
There was,
different ways that we can, you know, minister and stuff. It's not all just one way to teach.
I know, and I'm finding that out now. I just
Mhm.
am not suited for a classroom. Just God no.
Maybe not
But
now.
mm, we'll see.
Maybe if you had the right class.
Yeah, depending on the people, I could tolerate it.
Right.
If I get like a bunch of rowdy individuals, it's like,
Yeah,
no,
no.
I
Not
can't. I
if you don't
resign.
get if you had all the whole room full of everybody kung fu fighting, which everybody who's listening and doesn't know what I'm talking about, there is a CapCut template that somebody did this fantastic video, and it says the children's church moment when the teacher wants them to sit down and be quiet, and it's got all these guys doing this silly dance to everybody's kung fu fighting, and that's just how it is. It's like you say, okay, everybody sit down and listen, and everybody was kung fu it's like nobody's still or sitting. And so yeah, I don't think anybody does well with that, but anyway, continue.
And along with the concern I mentioned a few minutes ago, I was afraid of the title, basically, because I knew that it came with a lot of responsibility. And I knew, especially as a queer individual, that people with that title have used that to hurt different individuals. Not all of us, obviously, have done that, but in some way, shape, or form, people have experienced church hurt from the hands of leaders. Leaders have also experienced church hurt, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Mhm.
So I was reluctant to step in that position because basically I didn't want to mess it up.
Mhm.
And I didn't want to hurt anyone as a minister because I know people have suffered enough, so to speak. And I didn't want to mess up and it basically reflect badly on Sanctuary. So
Mhm. Well, that hasn't happened.
thankfully.
Well, we're about at the end of our episode, and you've covered a lot of main events from your own life and your own story. And
Mhm.
so I always leave the final thought with our guest. So, what is something you'd like to say or draw on from your experience in closing?
Hmm. Another great question. I will say that it's okay if you're still figuring things out. You, as cliche as it sounds, you are never too old to learn something, and that includes something about yourself. Because you were, how old were you when I gave you the demisexual revelation?
Oh God. Over over 30. I mean, what year was it? Was it like
20,
2016?
I think it was 2016, yeah.
So I was like 35.
Yeah. So, and people have discoveries much later in life too, and that's perfectly okay. You don't have to have everything figured out right now, and you don't have to stay married to whatever labels you have right now, or whatever job, or whatever thing you are quote unquote attached to right now. It doesn't have to be that way for the rest of your life.
Mm,
Life is a lot more fluid than we like to give it credit for.
mhm.
And it's okay to just see where life takes you as long as you keep an open mind and an open heart.
Well, that was a quack. And I
Sorry.
yeah, well. Well, and I thank you for being on. And actually, I'm going to record with you and Chuck next week, so you'll be back.
Mhm.
Actually, that episode will air before that one, so we'll definitely have you back for chapter 6. We'll definitely have you back for. It's been a long week, y'all. We will definitely have you
Mhm.
back for season 6, and we're already talking about stuff we want to do for it, so that's very exciting.
Mhm.
And how can everybody get in contact with you if they would like to?
There is my blog again. It's nickfits.com. That's nikfits.com. Actually working on a devotional to publish at some point tonight whenever I finish it. And if you can message me on there, you can also find me on Twitter at nickfits2. That's nickfits with the number 2 at the end. And on TikTok at nickfits411. That's nickfits with the numbers 411 at the end.
Okay. Well, I encourage everybody to go and check that out. And for anybody that is listening, we thank you very much for tuning in today. And we do hope that this episode has been a blessing to you. And to those of you who are looking for some really good resources, first, I definitely want to remind everybody about nickfits.com. That's nickfits, nikfits.com. Definitely go and check that out and follow along. People can follow it, right?
Yeah, and
Yep.
subscribe.
People go follow it, go subscribe so that you can be brought up and you can always keep up with the latest things that are going on it. New posts periodically up. Definitely check that out. Also check out our group Chaos Cube blog called Write the Vision, which is
Hmm.
at youarewelcomeinthisplace.wordpress.com. That's youarewelcomeinthisplace.wordpress.com. Can you tell I'm tired? Okay.
No,
And
you sound wide awake to me.
we have phenomenal writings and insights and things on there. Now, I'm also going
Hmm.
to run up the flagpole. If you want secret first person access to stuff that we are writing, it is often in our Discord group. So,
Hmm.
Sanctuary has a Discord. So, if you're interested in our Discord, go to our website at welcomeinthisplace.org and click on the link that says join Sanctuary's Discord. And then you will have access to stuff that we're writing before anybody else does.
Hmm.
So
Exclusive.
exclusive. So definitely check that out. Also, if you're looking for a book to read, look me up, Dr. Leanne B. Marino on Amazon.com or Barnes and Noble or wherever you get your books. That's Dr. Leanne B. Marino, and all of my different titles come up. There's definitely something for everyone. I'm actually not recommending one today because this was the story about our guest today. And so I didn't write their autobiography yet. So
Wait,
definitely
what?
you never know. So anyway,
Uh,
go up, check that out. Dr. Leanne B. Marino, both paperback and ebook available and hardcover later this year, so stay tuned. Also, if you'd like to learn more about the world of counterculture Christianity, feel free to visit my website at kingdompowernow.org. That's kingdompowernow.org. Also, connect with me on social media at Kingdom Power Now. I'm at Kingdom Power Now on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter. We don't call it X here.
Mm-mm.
WordPress, Instagram, and beyond. So look me up at Kingdom Power Now. Let's have a discussion. Let's start exploring the things that we are discussing, the things that you'd like to hear about, and more. If you're looking for a seminary, like was mentioned earlier, that's completely affordable, you can do from home and you'll actually use everything that you learn in this one, look and check out Apostolic Covenant Theological Seminary, ACTS for short, at acts176.org. And that's acts176.org. And if you are in the Charlotte, North Carolina area and you are looking for your found family, feel free to check us out at Sanctuary, as we've been talking about it today. There is no favoritism, they're just family at welcomeinthisplace.org. That's welcomeinthisplace.org. And if you cannot find an answer to maybe a question you have, feel free to reach out and we will be happy to get back to you. And this is Apostle Dr. Leanne Marino reminding you that stories matter and our stories matter. And so telling your story might make the difference between someone staying where they are and someone moving to where they need to be. Until next time, be blessed. Thank you for joining us on Kingdom Now. I pray it proves to be a blessing in your life. To learn more about this work, ask a question, submit feedback or a topic suggestion, advertise on air, or donate to this work, visit my website, which contains essential information and links for other points of contact around the web at kingdompowernow.org. Also, if you are in our area and would like to visit Sanctuary International Fellowship Tabernacle SIFT, visit welcomeinthisplace.org. Until next time, this is Apostle Dr. Leanne Marino reminding you that the kingdom of God is within you, and that means the kingdom is now.